Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello to you, good morning, and welcome back to the channel where today you join me in Portugal where the sun has just come up right in time for a first drive with the brand new BMW m850i. This is the first opportunity to get behind the wheel of BMW's new 8 Series Coupe. We're going to take a look at the car, introduce it, then go for a drive on the roads before later on heading to Estoril to experience it also on the racetrack. And then I'll bring it back to take you through the interior to fully explore the options, technology and functionality that you have available to the driver. So let's get started and take a look then at the new m850i. Here we go then, the brand new BMW m850i xDrive Coupe. We've now got the sun glistening brightly off the sunset orange paintwork, which was the launch colour for the car, but the Coupe arrives as the first body style for the new 8 Series. It will be joined by additional shapes in future. We've seen a concept of a Grand Coupe and potentially a convertible too. Initially, it's available in two different variants, the petrol-engined m850i that we have here, and also the diesel 840d, both of which were presented together back at this summer's 24 Hours of Le Mans alongside the M8 GTE car that was racing and taking part in the main event. The reason for that is that they were all developed together. Now, I was there to see the car and take a first look at it then, and also I had an opportunity to go for a test drive, a pre-drive in a camouflaged prototype car back before it was actually launched to get a sense of what it was going to be about. But today, with the full production version, we'll really get to discover it and fully experience what's gone into making this, as it was so heavily described much of a sports car, even though it's based on the 7 Series platform. We'll also discover a lot of the technology that's on offer, but the first things you notice are that it's long, it's low, it's wide, it's sleek, it has an aggressive, almost demeanor to it. When you start around the front, for example, the narrowest headlights ever found on a BMW, we have the laser lights here, the wide and low, very low in terms of its actual position, but also being narrow as well, front grille, aggressively designed. Of course, lots of openings for airflow. You've got a 4.4 litre turbocharged V8 making 530 horsepower. But this colour actually, with the sun on it like this, the pearlescent nature you see, the bright highlights through to the darker sections, really suits the characteristic of the car. We've got carbon fibre options like the door mirror. It's the first non-BMW M car to have a carbon fibre roof, of course, to help with weight savings. It's a 2+2 configuration, rear seats available. We'll get to the interior in a second, but just coming around towards the back, for example, you can see the elongated horizontal lines that really accentuate the width of the car. The m850i badge worn back here, but coming down inside the carbon diffuser, the exhaust tailpipes. This is basically a Grand Tourer, a very luxurious, sporty Grand Tourer, which is what today is about, to discover what it's going to be like to drive. We've got large wheels, big brakes, and again, I'm going to drive it on the roads and also on the racetrack. But let's come round just to take a look at the interior quickly, which I'll also go through in much more detail later on. But inside here, you can see we've got the live cockpit, the digital displays. There's a digital display for the dashboard too, but generally loaded up. We've got the crystal style gear lever here. You can see the display lighting up here. We'll go through all of this later on, but for the moment, let's jump in just to get a feel for what it's like to go out and drive on the roads. Okay then, we've got the key that we're familiar with. I can pop this in here. There's a wireless charging pad for it. Do up my seatbelt with the lovely M stripes on them, and then let's start the car up with the button in the center console. V8 into life. So we're going to head on out, drive a little bit out in the countryside, normal driving in modes and environments, just go through them and see what it's about. Off we go then. I've got a fantastic road ahead of me to truly test out the different driving modes and go through all of this. So starting off, we're in comfort mode, the normal, standard, gentle, comfortable driving setup. And one of the biggest things that they were testing when I first drove the camouflage car was the suspension and the chassis setup in that sense. So I know that when you vary the driving modes, and they demonstrated it with the complete opposite extremes, it can change to a huge degree in terms of the dynamic capability. But driving like this in comfort mode, it just oozes effortlessness. It's quiet, it's calm, it's gentle, the steering is light, the 8-speed automatic gearbox does its thing, the adaptive suspension is very, very comfortable. We can go through different driving modes and you can configure it, and there are an awful lot of things to explore and change and test with. But just cruising along, you've got a great view of the dashboard, very clear map navigation integration into the center of the live cockpit display. The car is of course quite large, no getting away from that. It's based on the 7 Series platform, although it's not that luxury Grand Tourer. They're very keen to emphasize that it's about being a sporty drive, and you do get that when you put it into the sport mode. So cruising like this, it's very quiet, there isn't particularly much noise coming from the engine. If I put my foot down, it will drop some gears, but it's smooth and gentle in the way it goes about it. If, however, we come to the center console and we press the sport button, one press goes into the standard sport mode. You have a few different ones. So now it's going to engage things a little bit more, tighten everything up. The gear shifts will be earlier, it will drop a gear quicker than it would have otherwise. The suspension firms up, you get a lot more sound into the cabin, I can hear that immediately. But this is very much, I suppose, the appropriate setting for this driving environment. Smooth tarmac, great feel from it. Of course, xDrive, that's the 4-wheel drive system. It's a permanent 4-wheel drive system, so not like in the M5 with the MX drive where you can switch it to rear-wheel drive. This is always 4 wheels, but with a bias towards the rear. Obviously the benefits of that are numerous. For example, the 0 to 100 km/h time, 0 to 62 miles per hour, is just 3.7 seconds. It's a big heavy car, but it gets to that speed in under 4 seconds. That's remarkably quick thanks to the technology, the 4-wheel drive of course helping put the power down to the ground as efficiently as possible. You've got a few things as standard. In fact, the technology as standard is really, really high, but including, for example, rear wheel steer, which I can feel instantly driving here. You just have that stability from the rear end of the car with the wheels turning in the opposite direction of the front to just bring it round like it's on rails round a corner. But let's turn it up one more into the Sport Plus mode. It's dropped some gears, we've got more sound in the cabin, and this is where it becomes that sports car. It changes its character and its nature, and you actually can feel that straight away. The throttle response is more immediate. You've got good braking with the M Performance brakes. A lot of sound. Of course, this is being piped into the cabin. You can hear that. It's the regulations, and this car meets the new regulations and rules, which really do tighten down and take a grip of what can be done in terms of the sound of a car. And BMW are playing this very early in the game just to make sure they're ready for it, I suppose, where some other manufacturers still need to catch up. But the gearbox is good. It knows most of the time what I want. Perhaps maybe I could do with it downshifting slightly more, but you can actually configure all of this to the Sport Individual mode, where you can set it up exactly how you would like it. And here, it really feels so much smaller and more nimble than perhaps the size and luxuriousness of the interior would suggest. Yes, away we go. So we're heading uphill, but we're shifting uphill, and we'll discover obviously more of this on the racetrack later on. But initially, I really like this. I got very used to the M5. I did a lot of miles in that car. There's a lot of power. The torque as well, 750 Newton meters of torque, so you can feel that very early. Some nice burbles going on. So it's based on the 7, and of course the name 8 would suggest that it's more above that in terms of size and scale and position, so maybe more towards the luxury end. But it's kind of the spiritual successor to the 6 Series, the previous generation 6 Series, and in character I think you feel a little bit more akin to that in the sense of the sports car. I know it's cliche to keep saying it, and I'm sorry about that. It does sound good when it downshifts, but we're back into a slower speed limit area, so let's give a press of the comfort mode. You can go into Eco Pro or Adaptive or change various things, but we'll just cruise at the moment back in comfort mode, balanced setting as it calls it. The gearbox then just taking a moment to drop back into automatic, but now I can go into the kind of light driving style, you know, gentle, lightweight on the steering wheel, not too much resistance against you. All of these things being able to change electronically to give you a different driving experience, and honestly that is, I think, the thing with this car, is it really changes massively from one extreme to the other. And I haven't played with the technology like the adaptive cruise control, the gesture control where you wave your hand around in the air to do those kind of features, he says as he does the music volume up and down like this, but really it's well together. It's very quiet. You know, now for example, it feels like a car you'd very happily do an awfully long distance in. You've got a good amount of luggage space, you've got the rear seats if you need to put more stuff back there, you've got the great infotainment, electronics, and then to drive when you get to a road like I've just been driving, it clearly comes to a bit of life as well. Now, just cruising along, I am going to set the navigation, which I think should be quite easy to do. They normally set this in favourites. Yeah, we've got Autodromo. I know I'm near where I'm going, but just to get to exactly the right place, only a couple of minutes to go.
The expected drive time is 4 minutes.
I was about to say, I think it's going to give us some instructions. Fortunately, not too far to go.
In 900 metres, take exit 1 on the right onto A16.
Slightly funny voice, but that all works pretty easily. It's letting me know what to do on the central screen as well. In fact, that's a good display. That's a really, really good display, how it presents the information to you. The only thing I normally need to do in these situations is work out how to mute it, because the talking can get a little bit irritating. But just cruising along actually on motorway,
take exit 1 on the right.
It's, again, comfortable. You know, I'm in comfort mode. I'm not manually shifting, for example. I could put it back into sport very easily, go into the full kind of extreme mode, push the gear stick to the left to be in manual. Well, actually, we're in sport right now, so how do you pop it into manual? You just go up and down, there we go, and then it's in manual, or use the shifter paddles on the back of the steering wheel. And you get some of those burbles. The crackles are coming from the back, but the main engine noise is really oddly from the speakers. It's completely all around, which is a strange feeling in here, I'm not going to lie. But then, legislation here, it has to be. Goodness, it does pick up well, and it's very, very stable and sure-footed. So it should be with four-wheel drive, very wide track. You can tell from looking at the car that it is a rather large car itself. But I'm looking forward to driving it on the track. Honestly, I think it's going to completely liven up as well, as I know from my small bits of experience with it. So let's go back into comfort mode, put the shifter back into drive that way. There we go. Now we're in our full comfortable automatic mode. You can turn on the adaptive cruise control with the assisted driving mode, as it's called. So now is where, if I were to set the speed to the speed limit, here we go, of 100, yeah, it's turning the steering wheel.
In 900 meters, take exit 5 on the right.
If I indicate, give it a gentle move over towards the right lane, position it back in the lane, and again for the corner here, adaptive cruise control detecting the car in front, and the steering wheel is doing its thing. But because we're exiting, I will take back over. We'll turn this off for the moment. There we go, the cancel button. Work out exactly
take
where I'm
exit
heading.
5 on the right.
Yes, okay. I think I know where to go now. Let me turn this off. Is that easy to do? Yeah, stop route guidance. All found. So, does that fine. Anyway, I was going to show you more about the car, so let's get there and have a look at that. Made it then to the paddock at Estoril, where this is not the only sunset orange M850i. In fact, behind me, I think we have 6 more of them looking brilliant there, but let's explore this now in some more detail to talk about the exterior, the design styling of it, and in particular why I think this is the best looking BMW at the moment. So the proportions are sporty, it's low, it's wide, but also the design emphasizes and backs that up. For example, on the bonnet you have those contours, those contour lines, one on each side, that emphasize the shape of it, and it comes down towards the front, where we touched a bit on it earlier, but the kidney grills, the traditional iconic dual kidney grills, wider, aggressively shaped, the 3D design to them, the openings for the cooling that can go through, they're connected in the center. You can see the camera here for the forwards visibility and the 360 camera system. Beneath that you have the adaptive sensor down there, which actually heats up so you don't get, say, snow or grime that makes a total mess of it like the M5. You can see openings, we've got carbon fiber, we've got the lower splitter here too, which is almost disguised, you don't necessarily notice, but to keep the front planted down. Either side of the grills you have the headlights. So this is the optional light on the car. LEDs are standard, the laser lights are the upgrade option. They have all sorts of trick technology basically to block out certain things in front of you, with a range of up to 600 meters. Inside, look at the complex design, but you still have the twin style eyes that we're familiar with from BMWs. And then down beneath that, here you have the air curtain, so you can see through the car, because air is guided and smoothened around the side again to make it as aerodynamic as possible. When we get towards the large wheels that we have here, the 20-inch wheels wearing Bridgestone rubber on this car with the M Performance brakes, you can see some pretty large brake discs that we've got inside there. Then right behind you've got the air breather, so that's that vent on the side of the car. Air can come through and out down the side, where you have 2 character lines, one on the upper edge and one at the bottom edge, which just trail down towards the back and towards the muscular arches that you can really see pretty well from this angle. And if we continue down, again, shaped side skirt emphasizing the width of the car, we come round towards the back of the car where the tail lights wrap around the side, the BMW logo worn there, but they wrap around towards the centre, and you have such a width to it, which is really, really made clear by the lines that you have that run all the way around the outside, all the way to the edges, and then down at the back you've got the diffuser as well. Just some slight shaping to it, again, a traditional characteristic of a sporty car, with the tailpipes hidden inside the trapezoid style finishes that you have around the exterior, but two tailpipes inside on each side of the back of the car, the badging, the M850i and the X-Drive badging, and again openings here, shapes, just making it look like a sportier car, and the sleek roofline. Look at the way the roofline comes all the way down towards the back, a continuous curve almost. Just a very, very good looking car all around, honestly. As we explore it, I really, really think they've done a good job in terms of the design of the M850i. Okay then, here we go, out onto Estoril. We've got a sighting lap just to get familiar again with the circuit. I've driven here a few times, so I know it reasonably well, but of course this is a Formula 1 circuit, a pretty famous one at that. It's got some technical sections, some very fast sections. In a car like this, it'll be interesting to use the four-wheel drive to help us, certainly here, for example, as you pull up, out, off camber, tight uphill section. We do also have some very, very fast corners, so let's get a feel for this then as we push on today and get a bit familiar with the track on which we're driving. A lead-follow setup, the M5 comp in front. We've got another M850i behind me, but even here, just up to 180 without even going foot flat, just while we get accustomed to what we're doing today. We've had a swap down the first start straight, means I'm now behind the other M850, but gives me a great view of the back of that car, just to look at it and admire it on the track. Firm on the brakes, as he has too, with his flashing lights. Then we've got our technical uphill, get a feel of the power going back in. This is like the gentleman's track car. It feels quite gentle and calm, for the fact that it's actually reasonably quick. Holding on tight here, he let the backslide out a little touch there, and away we go. You can hold it flat through here, although we're going a little bit too slow to be able to do so today. But nonetheless, speed is massive, very, very quick. For the next lap, let's give one press of the traction button to put it into dynamic mode, which will just give us a little bit more play towards the rear. The speed though is great. On a corner like this, for example, tight uphill, we've got the gearbox mostly in automatic right now, and it thinks very much ahead of what I want to do. Give it the power, four-wheel drive, pulling us straight through. Of course, it's a big, heavy car, but you do feel like you can manhandle it and get it to do what you want. Balance it, position it, and then it just goes around so quick, it doesn't look like it's as fast as I think it actually is. Firm on the brakes again. Not much squirm under braking, so I think it is quite calm, it is quite civilized and relaxed and gentle. It's very, very fast. There's an amazing amount of power. Hey, that looked cool in front. But I wouldn't say this is where this car is at home. It's more a road car than this. It's not quite the M5, for example, but you can lean on it. It feels very responsible, trustworthy, reliable. Just here, feeling the back. What a feeling! It's the cool down lap, which sadly means the end of my session of exploration with the M850 on track. It is, like I said, a gentleman's track car. It feels surprisingly calm for how quickly you're driving it. Of course, there's a lot of technology at play to help make the experience safer and faster. The X-Drive, for example, the gearbox in automatic, the settings and computer wizardry, but it's definitely on the fast end compared to what I expected. Driving around track, it just might not quite look like it. And here we have it then, coming back to a stop. Well, that was a fun drive, definitely very enjoyable. Let me just cheekily pop it into neutral. Sounds okay, just a bit through the speakers. So there we go, into park, job done, good fun. back outside then, where we have the great lineup with all of the cars, although it can sometimes be quite surreal to have so many identically spec'd ones together. But being the first press drive, these cars are all, of course, very highly equipped, which means we can have a change of scenery and check out the interior and run through some of this technology. So back towards the end, the car that I was driving to start us off, and I have in my hand the display key that we saw earlier. So this is an option. You do get the standard smaller keys as well with the car. This has more functionality but needs charging up. We've seen it on some other models, but just to give you a quick run through, the power button is on the side, which wakes it up. You then slide it to unlock, where you can see a few things. So for example, whether the car is locked or unlocked, swipe it across, whether the lights are on, go further and you can see the estimated range, how much fuel is in the tank, or you also have preconditioning, where you can set the time that you next intend to drive the car and start the climate control to warm it up or whatever it may be ahead of driving. We've also got the usual buttons to do the boot, to unlock and lock, and one other button here that wakes up the lights at the moment. You can see the way they illuminate gently. So let's just come through actually, because it's a Grand Tourer, and check out the amount of space available in the rear. So press and hold to open the power fold tailgate, where inside you have the split fold rear seat, and please do excuse my luggage that's currently in here, but you can see plenty of space. You have the handles here to release and fold down each side of the back independently. There's also a cargo net to the right hand side for some loose items too, and you have your typical two buttons, one to just close it and one to lock it. So let's shut that back down for the moment. Now the car is currently locked, I believe. Yep, we saw the indicator blink. So a touch of the back, keyless system, it will unlock, and we can now check out the interior. So before we do, illuminated side sills, carbon core, just again emphasising the lightweight components that are used inside the car. Can't really see that it's lit up at the moment due to the brightness, but let's take a step inside here and start up the car so we can get the air conditioning running. And we've got that view in front of us. Very, very appropriate. I notice actually there is technically one more in the centre with the dashboard graphic showing us the spec of this car. So let me just pull the door closed. Got the Harman Kardon sound system, the live cockpit display in front of us, large clear digital dashboard, lots of information to run through that you can see there. The central screen that is also a touch screen with our infotainment. If I just press home up towards the top, it jumps back to the tile interface and you can configure this again. In fact, you can change a lot of things about this car to set them up exactly how you'd like them. Now I'm just going to turn down the air conditioning slightly, and one thing I continue to like about BMW models is that even with the automatic climate control enabled, you have 5 stages of power at which it blows, which is something you don't often see but works very, very well, allowing you to set that exactly how you want it again. But let's start with the driver zone. So with the dashboard, to the left side you have the speedometer running around the outside, the digital, well actually the whole thing is digital, but the number readout in the center with your fuel gauge down towards the bottom left. On the right side you have the rev counter and then your temperature gauge just beside that. You can see the way that illuminates and it is animated around the rev counter as it fires up, and then in the center you get your navigation display and a little bit of information through that. On the steering wheel to the left side you have your cruise control components, so the lane assistance, the limiter, changing the mode depending how you've got it set. So I think we turn it on like this to enter assisted driving mode, and you can see the graphics that are all just very tidily integrated into the main display, and the ability to set it to the speed limit that you can see there. And then on the right hand side you have your controls for your music and entertainment and that kind of thing as well. But it's a small but nicely gripped steering wheel, quite chunky but quite small overall, which is a good sporty feel. And then the paddle shifters on the back, not necessarily the sportiest of paddle shifters in that they're just kind of electronic buttons almost to press, as opposed to being paddles in the literal sense of the word, but I guess that fits the character of the car. Then to the left of that you have some of your light controls down here, automatic lights of course selected, continues past the speaker grills to your memory options for the seat, the lock, the unlock, your mirror and window controls, and there's a button down here to do the boot as well, and down there for the engine bay that we'll get to very shortly. Behind the steering wheel you've got your board computer and lights and your wipers on the right hand side, those stalks. But coming through then to the infotainment, the latest generation, latest iteration of all of this. It takes a moment just to boot up when you've just fired up the car, but when you are in here you can cycle through many different things with it and see lots of information, driving details, go back to home, jump through your media, will load up, it's connected. This is an option to have the connected music where you then have access to a whole database, and having used this myself I really recommend it. It works very well. You've got a lot of music available to you in there, but I mean it's more or less as I think expected. the things you can load up and access in here are pretty endless, to be honest. And one thing I quite like is that you have these hotkeys down here, and when you bring your hand towards those and actually just touch them, it detects that you're doing that even though you haven't pressed, and it shows you which one I'm currently, as you can see, active on. So a lot of the BMW infotainment is done so that your eyes can be focused on what's going on in front of you, and you don't have to distract your vision coming over here. So for example, the gesture control where you do this to turn up and down the music, very easy. You can do that to go to the next track. There are things, for example, to answer a phone or to wave away a phone. You just wave your hand all through sensors from above you, something we've seen across a few models, but I still absolutely love it. It just makes the driving experience really easy. So if we continue down past the climate control settings, your assistance button, let's just press this quickly, where you can see the option to configure your assistance and safety systems. And as always, we have a lot of these available: front collision, side collision, lane departure warning, steering intervention, lane change warning, give way warning. The car will basically detect lots of things around you, built to make your journey safer and smoother. So if we come down, we have a storage bucket here which opens up. At the back you have the touchpad to charge either your phone wirelessly or to put the key itself in there where it will charge up. If I just grab this out of my pocket very quickly and put it in, you'll notice that will then start charging, and I think a blue light should turn on as well to let us know indeed that that's happening. We've got a USB port, our cup holders, and behind there the 12-volt socket as well. You can see that's coming into life. I'll just put it back in my pocket for the moment. Close this back up. Not necessarily the biggest fan in the world of this trim, I'm not going to lie, but that might just be me. Anyway, continuing down beyond this, we have the crafted clarity crystal-like gear lever here for the 8-speed automatic. You can see the 8 written just inside it. Looks kind of cool, but does it fit with everything that's around? Not 100% sure. But beside this, you have some of your controls. So traction control, the 360 cameras. If I just give this a press, you can see what that loads up. But basically, you have a number of different cameras that you can view and change and go through some settings, as I'm discovering as I do this. But if I put it into reverse by doing that, you'll see how it loads up the 360 view as well. And we've got parking assistance, so it will look for a parking space either parallel or perpendicular and help you get in it. And it also has reversing assistance. So if you go back, it will keep the car in a dead straight line while you're reversing. You don't need to panic so much about holding the steering wheel. The car will do this magically for you. So lots of fun stuff in there. Pop it back into park with the button here on the bottom. Then we've got the parking sensors, the auto start stop, the start engine and stop button itself. Beneath that you have some of your controls, so the Sport, Comfort, Eco Pro and adaptive buttons. If you press adaptive, it will basically work out what you're doing on the go, and we should back out of the cameras with the back button just there. Ooh, we got car wash mode and parking and lots of fun things going on. So let's press it back into adaptive. You can see predictive adjustment of vehicle settings for the driving mode. If you go into sport, this is where you have the ability to configure the sport modes in terms of damping, steering, engine, transmission. You can see how all of that works, and you can just go through the standard or plus sport modes, which will be sportier than comfort and as sporty as the car will go by default. So that's all available to you there. Electronic handbrake, and then your iDrive controller with some hotkeys above, back an option at the bottom, and the ability to kind of write and interact with it on the surface of it itself. Then behind that, big armrest storage. It's quite a wide central tunnel, you'll notice, but you've got decent storage in here with a mat at the bottom to stop things sliding. You've got a USB-C port to charge up your phone, another cigarette socket as well for other electronics and things you may have. The seats, they've got a nice perforation to them, some M badges and logos as you look around, including on the seat belts. I always really like this, the triple M stripe that you have down the side. Of course, this is like an M car light, not a full M. It's not like the M8, it's the m850i. Good glove box storage, door pockets, things you more or less expect to find. So let's just switch it off for the moment. I'm going to check out the available space for the rear passengers, which is of course also relevant in a car like this. So that seat is in my driving position. I'm not going to lie, it did not leave much room. It's 2+2. You're going to fit somebody small back there, not somebody of significant size, although I'm going to try. I'm not particularly tall, about 5'10", 5'11" or so. Just see if I fit. No, I don't. I can't fit back here. So don't expect to take an adult on a journey in this car. In the back, not going to be comfortable. That was all I needed to ascertain for right now. Let's get back in the front. Although back here you do have the same seat belts, which is cool. Just the lack of space. You can see the speakers also on the rear parcel shelf. So let me do the delicate job of climbing back out. There we go. Fold the seat back. I guess it does move automatically. You can put luggage in the back. That's basically what it's for. But let's open up the bonnet double pull and go round and have a look at this as well. So the 4.4 litre turbocharged V8 making 530 horsepower, 750 newton meters. Like I said, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, just 3.7 seconds, and onto a top speed limited, electronically limited as per normal, to 250 kilometers per hour, which is 155 miles per hour. Not all that much we can see in here, potentially, and I hope there will be a more powerful version to come in the future, but as I've discovered, this offers ample power for most people, and the car really does look very, very sporty to go with that. Let's give this a nice firm shut. And we're back down in place. So there we more or less have it. A complete look today at the new BMW m850i. A wonderful car, I think, in just about every way. It is, though, I am going to mention, quite an expensive one. For the UK price tag, the car starts, albeit highly equipped, at a smidge over £100,000. Significantly more expensive than the older 6 Series, which, in many respects, it now replaces. Of course, much more expensive than some other models as well, but for that, you do get the premium flagship sporty BMW. To conclude this day then, driving the car in both different environments, different experiences, I think clearly it leaves room for something to come in above that, and fingers crossed that is going to be arriving. But for now, this car does, I think, what you expect it to, in the sense of being very much a calm, relaxing grand tourer. But when you get, like we were earlier, out on some nice twisty roads, or also here on the racetrack, it can liven up. It becomes quite a dynamic car to drive, but along with the technology and calmness that you want in a daily driver. It's not shouty, it's not boisterous. It is very, very civilized, practical, well equipped, well loaded in terms of technology. But I've had an awesome time driving it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, seeing and discovering everything that there is to know pretty much about the new BMW 8 Series and the m850i Coupe. That is it for this time though, guys. Thanks as always for watching. I appreciate your support, and I will see you again very, very soon. Cheers!